gold beats under the moonlit skies, unrivaled adventures where freedom flies.
I just boarded an Azamara Cruise, and over the next 8 days, I'm taking you with me as we cruise from Lisbon to Barcelona. And I'm going to show you what life is like on board, the amazing cities that we visit, and what makes this small ship experience so special. So come along. And stick around, because this is actually a scouting trip for a cruise that I'll be taking next year with Azamara for a full Iberian experience. We're going to be starting in Barcelona, finishing after going all the way around up in Bordeaux in France, and I am super excited. I want to get an idea of all of the things that we can see along the way and make sure that you can come along with me if you want to experience Spain like a local. But first, a little bit about this ship and what we're doing on this itinerary. We're cruising with Azamara, and this specific ship is the Onboard. We're taking a cruise with 5 different destinations over about 8 days from June 19th to June 25th, starting over in Lisbon and finishing up in Barcelona. Now, it's really cool. Of these 5, 4 of them are going to be on the cruise for the next year. So we start out in Lisbon. We board in Lisbon and actually have the night in Lisbon, the morning in Lisbon as well, before we take off midday to start making our way down to Seville. And one of the things we'll talk about a little bit later are the special things that you can do when you book with Azamara. And what I'm really excited about is being able to get up the river and into Seville, where we will have another overnight stay. Now, after that, we're going to the one place on the itinerary for this trip that is not going to be included on next year's trip, which is Ceuta in Africa. For me, this is the most exciting of the cities because it's the only one that I've actually never been to. It's in Africa, technically Europe and Spain, but we're going to be going to the Strait of Gibraltar, where Hercules basically separated the 2 continents, Gibraltar being one of them, Ceuta being the other. I'm excited to check out the port city and basically everything that they have, the mix of all these different cultures, before we have that full day in Ceuta, and then head off over and get out to Málaga. Málaga will be on the itinerary for next year. After Málaga and a full day in Málaga, we do have a full day on ship where I'll be able to take you around, show you a few more of the places on board, and get an idea about what life is like when you're on board and sailing out on the Mediterranean before we finish in Barcelona. Now, in Barcelona, you actually have another overnight stay, so you have not only the day in Barcelona, the night before we're getting off the next day, because we're getting in and really finishing up the 27th. I'm actually jumping off the 26th. Doesn't really make sense for me to stay on overnight, and I've got some other things to do. And after a full 8 days of sailing, we'll be able to understand a little bit more about what it's like on an Azamara cruise, and I'll have a much better idea about what we're going to be able to do for next year. So remember, if you do want to join me on that cruise for next year, check down below in the link in the description where you can sign up. Now, as I mentioned, it's not all fun and games while we're on board. We are here to do a lot of work and especially get everything prepped for that cruise that we'll be taking next year. And I know I've mentioned that a few times already, so I want to take the time to let you know what this cruise is about, and if you want to come join me on the ultimate Iberian experience, this is the plan that we have for next year. It's going to be from June 2nd to June 16th, starting in Barcelona. And one of the best things about this cruise is that we're going to have extended port times of 10 or more hours in multiple of these cities, some overnight and several overnight stays where we'll really be able to get a full idea of the cultural immersion into these cities. And we're going to make our way all around the Iberian Peninsula to about 5 different autonomous regions in Spain. Technically 4 different countries, because we're going to Spain, Portugal, Gibraltar, and France, finishing up in Bordeaux, and it's going to be really exciting. So I'm going to pop up a map on the screen so you can follow along as we break down each of these different destinations. Starting off in Barcelona, our first stop and our first port of call is going to be Valencia. After that, we're going to make our way down the coast a little bit more to Cartagena. Then we're going to go over to Málaga. Málaga, we'll have seen on the cruise that we're on right now. After Malaga, we're going to hit up Gibraltar. After Gibraltar, we're going to go back to Seville. Seville is going to be just like this cruise, an overnight stay, but this time we're going to have 2 nights in Seville, so basically almost 3 full days to explore Sevilla, and I'm working on getting some different day trips and things so you can have a really nice time seeing even more of the cities around Andalusia. And after Seville, we're going to be leaving Spain behind and going into Lisbon, up to Porto, And then after Porto, we're going around the top of that Iberian Peninsula, getting back into Spain, getting over to Bilbao, San Sebastián, before we get over to Bordeaux. And we're going to have a little bit of that time in Bordeaux because we're going to have another overnight stay where things will end in Bordeaux, wrapping up on June 16th. It is going to be, like I said before, the ultimate Iberian experience. And if you want to come along, remember down below you've got the link so that you can sign up, you can join me, and have a great time. So with all that said, let's get back to our 2025 cruise and let you know what we got into while we were here so you can get an idea of what you can do next year when you join me all around the Iberian Peninsula. We started off June 19th and I caught a flight from Barcelona that very morning over to Lisbon, arrived in the airport and caught a quick cab right over to the cruise port, and boarding was extremely easy, super fast, no lines at all, everything super easy. They took our bags, gave me everything we needed to do, got through security, and was right onto the ship. One thing that I saw a little bit later when we saw the MSC cruise, huge cruise right next door, was how long those lines actually got. So another benefit of these ships is you don't have a lot of that waiting to do. Once I got on board, I met up with Dave, the River Cruise King, and Jans, and we kind of tackled everything that we were going to be doing for that week. All right, it's day one. We've got the morning in Lisbon. Let's see what we get up to. And that background I don't think will ever get old. It's too bad we only got one day. On our morning in Lisbon, Jans and I jumped into a taxi and we decided to tackle Lisbon from top to bottom. We got up to the great lookout point that they have all over the city. Short taxi ride right up there. And remember, being docked so close, you really have no problem getting right into that center of the city. Once we got up and got all of our views, we started to make our way down through Alfama and see some of the major sites. We actually got to see the cathedral, which in all of my trips over to Lisbon, I've never been able to do. Finally got inside and saw that. And then what we did is we tackled some of the top things that you need to do while you're in Lisbon. We tried those pastel de Belém, those famous pastries that were so good. We actually tried them at 2 different places, and that second place, Castro, so much better. And we also had some of the ginja, which is a very famous little liqueur that you can have. We wanted to get it at this famous place right off of the Praça Comercio, but what we ended up doing was going to a rather famous restaurant and grabbing one. But in an entire morning, we got to see basically everything, or at least it felt like, in Lisbon, and then we started to make our way back. So after a very full morning in Lisbon, we're getting back on because we are about to set sail and start making our way over to Seville. But it's not just all cruising and sailing from here. Got a lot of work to get done this afternoon. Let's see what happens. While we set sail from Lisbon for an overnight cruise to get over to Sevilla, it gave us plenty of time on the ship to get a lot of work done. I actually edited throughout the entire afternoon to start getting some of those blog posts out, but it also gave us a great chance to experience the ship and explore. And oh, did I mention? It was my birthday. I actually got to celebrate my birthday on Azamara, and surprisingly, they left a little surprise for me in my room. Didn't tell you, but it's actually my birthday today, so I'm celebrating on board, heading over to Seville for tomorrow. Super excited about it. And look at what they did. It's super nice. And everybody, as we've been walking on, has been telling me happy birthday. Day 2, and we have been sailing all night from Lisbon, and we are making our way over to Sevilla. We still have quite a bit of ways to go. We are getting, and you can now start to see the actual first sights of land right there. We've got Chipiona in the distance with the lighthouse. And just so you know where we are, Cádiz is a little bit further down the coast. We're gonna do that, pass by there in the next couple days, but first we got to hit up Seville. And this is one of the most exciting things, especially for me, about this trip, is because this is one of the few cruise ships that can actually get up the river, the Guadalquivir, and we're going to get all the way over to Sevilla. It's a small enough ship to where we can actually get into the city, dock in the city, and like I said, that's one of the best things about coming on an Azamara cruise. But get those views, and you can see some of the boats and everything out there. You can start to see part of the sea and that city really coming in. Today is going to be majority of it on the ship, doing some work. You'll see a bunch of things that are going on, but I'm really just excited to kind of cruise up the river and get into Seville. As I said, one of the big things about actually being able to get over to Seville is cruising up that river. So our morning, the real experience was getting up that river, going through all of that history of all of the older ships that used to make their way from Seville out over to the New World, and really seeing that for such a unique experience. Getting to see something completely different. Before we got into Seville, parked and docked very, very close, and were able to get off the ship where we had a tapas tour waiting for us. I had contacted my buddy Jeff, who's over in Seville and is an ex-chef, now leading some tours, some amazing tours that really got us into kind of the heart of Seville and seeing so much in such a little bit of time. We got to see 4 different restaurants, tried out a bunch of different things, saw some of the main highlights as we were walking through the center of Seville. And that's one of the big things that I'm excited for the itinerary for next year, when we're going to 5 different Spanish regions, because you get such a different feel in all of these different places. From Barcelona to Valencia, getting into Seville is such a different feeling. And even Dave told me while we were walking around.
Barcelona is its own place for me. And here in Seville, I feel like I'm finally in Spain.
There it is, the River Cruise King in Spain. Now after our tapas tour, because we were docked and staying the night in Seville, we got back onto the ship, got rested up because we had an early morning the next day. Day 3, we're in Seville. We got the morning in Sevilla, and then we get back on the boat and start cruising over to Ceuta. Now just like in Lisbon, our second day in Seville was only that morning, but there is so much time to get a lot of things in. We were able to hit up the Alcazar, the cathedral, get all the way up to the tower and see all of the surrounding area, get over to the famous Las Setas, over to the Torre de Oro, and really covered the entirety of that old part of Seville. If you're going over there, that Alcazar is absolutely incredible. The Gothic cathedral is the largest Gothic temple in the entire world, the largest obviously in Spain, and it is just something so special to be able to take that time and really visit the city. Now, because next year we will have a bunch of time in Seville, there is going to be the possibility of going on some day trips, either to Granada to see the Alhambra or Cordoba to see the Mezquita. But once we got done with our morning in Seville and we started early to beat all of that heat, we got back on to the ship so that we could get over to Ceuta, and our only stop that was going to be in Africa. It is day 4 and we are currently docking in Ceuta. Out of all of the cities on the cruise, this is the one that I am most excited about, realistically, because it's the only one that I've never been to. So we are going to get off the ship, we're going to get into Ceuta, explore, and see what one of the Spanish cities in Africa is all about. Ceuta is the city that I had pegged for this trip as the one that I was the most excited in getting over and seeing. As I said, because it's the only one that I had never been to, also getting into Africa for the first time, and just seeing something that's so different, so much history, and something that a lot of people have actually never been over to. Because we docked right in the port and there weren't that many people, we had easy access into the center of the city and were able to explore a lot of what was going on. We even got over to the beach, where one big activity that I really enjoyed was getting into the kayaks, going through those old city walls, really exploring that city, getting through those old walls and seeing something that we were not able to do in any other place. Got back onto shore, and then we went over and tried out some chicken hearts. That was one thing when I was looking up what we can do in Ceuta, what we had to do. One of the big things when you're traveling is all the different food, and each of the different regions in Spain is going to have so many different types of things to try out. When we were in Ceuta, we had to try out the chicken hearts, but when we're going around next year, remember that in each of the different regions, each of them has their own type of food. So when we get over and try out, yes, different tapas and things, but when we get up to the north and we get up to San Sebastián, to Bilbao, we can try out those pinchos, which is a whole different way of eating. After lunch, we got back onto the ship. We had a special night plan that we'll talk about a little bit later, and you'll see what was going on before we set sail the next day so we could get to Málaga. Good morning, and we are in Málaga, right in the port. I can't believe actually how close we are to the center of the city. You can see in the background there the cathedral, up on the hill a little bit further removed, which is the Gibraltar castle, but over on the other side you can even see out to the entrance to Calle Larios, very much in the very center of that city, Antigua Casa La Guardia. Oh, super excited to get on in, and like I said, One of the best things is how close you can get, so you can really jump in, jump out whenever you like. Now, Malaga was really one of the highlights in terms of cities for me and really shows the benefit of cruising with Azamara and coming with us next year on that incredible Iberian itinerary, because we were docked right in the city center. So what I actually ended up doing was waking up, going on a tour in the morning, finishing around noon and getting back on the ship, did a little bit of a workout and the gym, and then got off the ship again because it was so easy to be able to do that. Got back into the center of the city where I met up again with Dave and Jans as we were going around and hitting up some of my favorite places. Now, one of the reasons why Malaga was one of my favorite stops on the trip is because I just love that city. We were able to get over to some of my favorite restaurants and bars. We went to El Pimpi and tried out some of my favorite dishes. That's a place that I go to every single time, and we will definitely be going to next year. And then we got over to the bar La Tranca. And as we were heading back, we decided, hey, let's stop and have another drink at another bar just as we were walking through. And the beautiful part was we didn't have to rush to get back because we had 14 full hours in the city in Malaga. We were able to really take it slow, see a lot of things, but also be able to kind of just take in the entire atmosphere of the city without all of that pressure to get back and feel like we missed out on something. Once we got back on the ship, we had another special night, a flamenco show that we'll see a little bit later, and then we set sail for a sea day before we got to Barcelona. Now, the sea day was a different day from any of the others while we were on the cruise because we weren't going to be able to get off the ship. But luckily, there's plenty of those spaces that we'll talk about a little bit later, so you can have an understanding of what you can do on the various sea days that we'll have or the time that we're on the ship and cruising. But what it gave us a great time to do was I got to sit down with Dave and we really started to plan out everything for next year, for that cruise for next year, get a little bit more of that itinerary and really talk over our experiences and our ideas of what we thought about this Azamara cruise. We both came to the same conclusion that it is a great itinerary. Not only is it the cultural immersion and everything that you can do, but also what we're putting together is something that is a truly special experience so you can see so much in that time and all at a great price point. We also got to sit down and do an interview that if you haven't checked out, I would highly recommend, where we talked all about over-tourism, not only in Barcelona, but Spain and Europe as a whole, the cruise industry's role in all of that, and had a really good conversation about things on both sides of the argument that I think are always important to bring up. Now, our final port of call was Barcelona, and fortunate for me, as I just got to go home, so I didn't have to fly back anywhere else afterwards. But when we pulled in on the morning of the 26th, I got some incredible views coming into the harbor that I really don't get to see so much from always being in the center of the city. But it was a really cool experience to come in through Montjuic, through that port, and see everything from there. Now, I actually got off the ship on that day, a day earlier, but everybody else did have included an overnight into Barcelona. And because we were docked right outside of and a short walk from La Rambla, easy access getting into the city, and that's really because of the size of the ship. Again, you can dock so much closer so you don't lose all of that time moving back and forth. Now, I'm sure everybody had a great time, but I really just took advantage to get everything packed up, make sure I had everything that I needed, and then got off the ship. And even though I didn't stay for that final night, it was an amazing trip the rest of the way through to see all of those different cities arrive into Barcelona. And while next year we're doing it the exact opposite way and going even further, I now had a much better idea of what to expect. And so after seeing all of the different stops and the experiences you can have off the ship, I wanted to show you a little bit about what this ship is all about and all the offers that it has. We're going to start with the rooms. Hello, hello, welcome. We've got a Veranda Stateroom here on the Azamara Onboard. Come on in, show you around. So as you can see, as they always say, this is where the magic happens, right in the middle of the room. But we've got a nice little couch, table, desk to get a bunch of the work done. I'm not gonna lie, this is pretty comfortable right here. Overall, I think it's a nice room. We got the TV, but again, we're not gonna be in the room too often. And the best thing that we have right now, we haven't even left the port yet. We've got the terrace. So come on out, get some views of Lisbon here. And we are right in front of the old city. Beautiful views. Check it out. Now come back inside with me here. Some nice complimentary waters. We got some good, safe, and shelf space right in here. Got a nice closet with our life jackets, just in case we go overboard. Some robes, umbrellas. Hope we don't have to use them on the trip. And then last but not least, what you've all been asking for. There's our bathroom. Little idea of the shower. But not so bad. We've got a little bit of everything here. And as I said, the idea is to explore. We will be hitting up all sorts of different ports on this trip. And we are going to have a lot of extra time in those ports, which means we're going to be in the city taking advantage of everything. But on those days that we're going to be in the ship, we got plenty of stuff over here. Oh, hello again. Now we're going to take a look at the Club Continental Suite. Come on in. So you can see we've got quite a bit more space. Definitely would recommend taking a look at these. All of this space around with the bed. Nice little champagne welcome. It's a good looking guy over there. And then we've got the terrace. So let's pop on out. Oh, it's already open. So come on out. We don't have the same views over here because of where we're docked. We got a bunch more space looking across the harbor out. And come back on in here. Check out all the storage space that you have, along with butler services. The laundry we didn't talk about last time. Get some laundry included in that. And then you can see all the cabinets. So you can store everything you need. And there you go. There's the other options we have. Bathrooms as well. You can see a bit more space in there. Full shower. Bathtub if you want to have a nice little soak. And there you go. Some of the options we have for next year's cruise. Those are the two main rooms and the main offers that we have for our cruise for next year. It'll be very similar to the two that you've just seen, but apart from that, the boat has a whole bunch of different spaces. One of the things you have to think about is that Azamara is one of the older ships. So it's not a super new luxury craft, but that's also not really what we're looking for. We're looking again for all of those experiences we can have off of the ship, but life on board was also a lot of fun. To start off, you have about 700 passengers, so there's only about 350 rooms, all double occupancy, with 700 people total. And despite how small that number really is in terms of cruises compared to some others, there's people that I'm seeing on the last day that I hadn't seen the entire week. Looking at it from right here, you probably think it's a huge ship, but its only occupancy is 700 max. That's incredible when you compare it to some of those other huge ships that you see come into these ports. And we woke up this morning with the MSC right next to us, and from here you can see the difference in the size of these ships. And this is what I'm talking about, the unique travel experience that you can experience with Azamara, where we can get to places that maybe some of these bigger ships can't get to. But check out the difference in the size. So you really don't run into everybody with all the different spaces that we have. On the top deck, You've got space for a walking track. You've got a pool with some different jacuzzis. You've also got the gym, which is something I was really worried about, not knowing how big it was going to be, but there were a bunch of different machines, free weights, and they even had different classes that you could take throughout the morning or during the different days, especially that day at sea. Connected into that, there was a spa. And then there were all sorts of different restaurants. That top deck, again, had what we called the patio. You also had Windows Cafe, where we spent a lot of our meals, which had a nice buffet for everybody. Then they had the bigger restaurant on the downstairs, and they also had 2 premium restaurants. Those aren't included in all of the packages, but you could, for a supplement, go there, and if you have any of the suite levels, that's included as well. Apart from a suite level breakfast diner, which we tried out all of the different options, there's a lot of different food, all sorts of different things. You're never going to be hungry while you're on deck. They even have little finger sandwiches and a smaller cafe, the Mosaic Cafe, down on floor 5. So all sorts of different things. And one of the best parts is that those drinks are included all day. So you're never going to be thirsty. You've got waters and coffees and beers and wines and anything that you need. And they got a nice little pool, a bar right up here on the rooftop. Most drinks are included, not premium stuff, but just going to get a nice little ale. A ginger ale. And there's always staff around. The staff was incredibly nice, and they were always on hand, always willing to help you out, cleaning up the rooms, cleaning around, or just saying hello, good morning. All the time they were around, and you never were without anything that you needed. And one of the other things that I really liked was each evening they gave you a new brochure with some information about what to expect and what was going on. So even if you take a look, you have your arrival time, where you're gonna go, anything that you need, time that you need to be back on board, and a little bit about the weather, and also kind of a little bit of an idea of what the city was like, plus something for the next day. Now the next day was just a day at sea, but any of the other days you might have had, kind of like for the next day, things about Barcelona, your next destination. And then on the inside they had a bunch of the different activities that are going on board so that you don't miss anything, a full schedule. And while one of the big advantages of going with Azamara is that you have all of that time off ship, the times that we are actually on the ship, either at night or even those full sea days, is a lot of fun, and there are a bunch of different activities that you can actually take part in. For starters, we had a bunch of different lectures about history and about the areas that we were going to be visiting. Specifically, we had some things about the Spanish Empire, which really helped to learn a little bit more about Seville and everything that was going on in those golden ages, and really take in everything that we were seeing. Those were packed. There were actually a lot of people there. Experts were leading those talks, and it was really interesting to see. And one special thing they had on board, actually the evening we were in Málaga, was a flamenco show. They had 2 different slots that you could get in and see a live flamenco performance. And when you're in Spain, that's what most people want to see while they're there. So instead of getting out into the city and taking your time while you're there to see it, we actually had it on board. One of the things you can look forward to on every Azamara cruise is one of their signature white nights. Make sure you bring your white, come up to the top, and you've got a special party up top where everybody is decked out. A nice time to get together and enjoy one of the ports. So we're here the last day of the cruise with Barcelona in the background. If you've been following along on the vlogs as well with each of the different cities, I'm not going to do one specifically on Barcelona because fortunately I have that video of what to do if you only have one day in Barcelona, where we walk all around and see everything that there is. Today I'm going to be getting off the ship just a day early while everybody is out exploring. I'm taking advantage of the ship being basically empty so that I can just wrap up with a few final thoughts after the scouting trip for our journey next year. And overall, you know, when you always hear about cruises and things, a lot of times it's about, you know, maybe an older clientele, or even you don't get a whole lot of time in the ports. And one of the things that I really enjoyed was the fact that we had these longer stays where you really felt like you could get into the city and not have to be rushing, not running around and getting to all these different places and not feeling like you have enough time. Because cruises really are kind of a little bit of a snippet, a little bit of an idea of a lot of places, maybe in a little bit of amount of time, that if you know or like it and you want to go back, then you know which ones you can go back and see. But with this kind of itinerary, with this extended time in the ports and having some overnight stays as well, it gives you a chance to be able to see a lot of those things. And so one of the things that I'm making sure for next year is that we have a full list of vetted, not only activities and guides and things to do, but also just an idea of how can you take advantage of the time that you have and see, to get that feeling of actually seeing the entirety of the city. And one of the best things about traveling in the summer, especially in June, are the extended daylight hours. You can be out super late, and with the extended port trips that you have time to explore all of the different cities. My favorite stop probably had to be Ceuta, just because the fact that it was the only one that I had never been to of the 5 different stops that we had. And I was really excited to see not only a new continent, realistically, never been on the African continent, so that was my first time over there, but a really different part of Spain. And it was such a small city that we were able to get around and see a lot of different things. It's a place that while we were there, I was wondering if it was something that I would want to go back and see. But that was really just an idea of seeing something completely different to me. But in terms of other cities that I had already been to and that we were able to revisit again, I think for me, the highlight probably would have been Málaga. Now, we did have 14 hours in the port, and what I did is I got off, walked around, actually did a tour in the morning, came back on ship, was able to go to the gym, work out a little bit, then leave, go have lunch with Dave and Jans, and then travel around and see a little bit more of some of the different bars that I hadn't been to in a while. But I just really felt like we could take in a lot of the local culture. But that was just a really, really nice day in terms of being able to kind of feel the city. And even though it was just one day, I do feel like it was maybe better than even just having 3 full days and just running around or really not sure what to do. And remember that this whole idea of this cruise and this week was experiencing the ship, really getting to see how it all worked, what the deal was, and getting to see how the docking experience worked in each of the different places. And remember, even look where we are in Barcelona. It's just a short walk and you're already at Las Ramblas. Probably in less than 10 minutes, you're already at the base of Las Ramblas. You don't have to walk that far. Because of the size of these ships, you can really dock in those cities. In Ceuta, we were there in no time. We were already in the cathedral. In Málaga, literally 2 minutes, and we were at the base of Calle Larios. In Seville, we were the furthest outside. But the beauty of Seville is that it was the only, and this is really one of the only ships that can get up that river. So an experience alone is just going up the Guadalquivir and getting up into the city, where most places are stopping maybe in Cadiz or some other place, and you're having to bus into Seville for an hour and a half, 2 hours almost. So it really gives you this close proximity where you can go out, and for the people that are staying tonight, they have the full night to come back onto the ship, experience Barcelona. So keep that in mind for next year. If you're looking to have a full Spain experience, remember what we're doing is starting in Barcelona, going to Valencia, Cartagena, Málaga, Gibraltar, Seville for those 2-night stays, which gives us enough time to even get out of Seville and see some of the best places in all of Spain. Granada, Cordoba, then moving over to Portugal, where we're going to Lisbon and Porto, rounding out that peninsula and getting over to Bilbao, San Sebastián, and then finally finishing up with an overnight stay in Bordeaux. I am super excited, and I'm really prepped now to make sure that we have these full plans for you who wants to come and really experience Spain, see all there is to it. So if you want to join, remember that down below in the link, what I have is all of the information, the sign-ups, where you can get some exclusive activities and sign up for even some of the extra activities and extra tours that will be added on. So if you want to experience Spain and the Iberian Peninsula with me along the Azamara Quest next year, drop down in that link below, and I'll see you there.
We sail Spain like kings of old, stories of fire
Salud.
and tales of gold, like old beats under the moonlit skies, unrivaled adventures where freedom